In this episode, we will learn how to overcome porn addiction. Helping us with this is a porn addiction recovery coach and the founder of the Porn Reboot System. Welcome to the show, JK. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's an honor to be here. And I was just talking with Toby about the name of the show, and I just love the idea. I love the concept, and how we can take time to actually intentionally reflect on the experiences of others.
Yes, thank you so much. And that's why I'm happy to be speaking with you because we're going to be talking about something that affects a lot of people.
Mm.
And not a lot of people talk about it also at the same time. It's like, oh, we know we are all going through it in a way or the other, but it's something we don't want to talk about at all because it's
Oh, we're
private
gonna
and
be we're
secret.
we're gonna be talking about it today.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to to dissecting it, put it on the table, and just scattering it all over the table. Let's
Let's
see how
do
it
it.
goes.
Let's open it up.
Let's do it. So thank you so much for joining me for this soulful conversation regarding porn addiction, and I'm so grateful that I get to speak with you
Mm.
because you did not just like go to school to learn about it or become a therapist, so that you actually went through it yourself. You went through that journey yourself. Because I was reading about you a bit, and I found out that you got exposed to porn at the age of 8
Mm.
and became addicted to it at the age of 14.
Mm.
So I don't know if you would like to start out with sharing this story with us. Like, how did that whole journey play out for you?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you're correct. I didn't grow up and you know tell my parents that when I grow up, I want to be a porn addiction recovery coach. That they would have. That was just even today. People are like, what do you do for a living?" And I explain it, and you're like, "Are you joking?" I'm like, "No, no, no. That's what I actually do."
Yeah.
But I didn't expect to end up here. I ended up here by accident, and it all started when I was 8 years old. Growing up, I was what you called a latchkey kid, which is both parents are out working, so they hide the key somewhere when you come back from school. And when you go in, you have to lock the door and make sure that no strangers come in. So a lot of people grew up like that sometimes, and I did. And we would have a cousin who was sort of a nanny too, who would come over and take care of us. And my parents were very conservative Christians growing up. So we didn't talk about sex. We didn't on TV. If the bad part was playing, you had to like close your eyes, or
Yeah.
that my dad and mom will get very uncomfortable and start talking about something else. So we weren't exposed to this. But this cousin who came by with a comic book, and I really wanted to read the comic books. I kept asking her, and she just wouldn't let me read it. So I was determined because I had read everything in the house, and it was just boring. So I found out where she hid it because I noticed that she wouldn't leave the house with it.
Mm.
She's hiding it somewhere, and when she came to take care of us, so when I found the hiding, so you know how you can't hide things from kids.
No.
If they have nothing to do and they're at home, well, they'll find it. So
Yeah.
I found it, and unfortunately, it was a pornographic comic. It had a theme of a young guy getting married and bringing his wife home. And then his wife, when he went out to run an errand, his new bride started having sex with the father in law. And yeah, and everything was oversized and exaggerated. And this is the interesting thing about pornography. Even though I was innocent, right? I knew what I was looking at. And that's the problem because pornography is so freely available. And a child, a person who has mental development issues, anybody can, whether they don't need to even speak a certain language. They can decode it immediately, but they will translate it into what they understand in their life.
Mm.
So as a child, when I saw that, there was fear. I was scared. I was excited because I know I'm not supposed to see this, but there was fear because I was like, is this what, mom and dad are doing? This doesn't look fun. This is crazy. Why is it such a big deal? Why is my cousin so attached to this? I started asking myself these questions.
Mm.
And then after that, I would start noticing like little things like, why is it that people act a certain way around nudity? So maybe it's a good thing, right? As a kid, that's what my brain translated it into.
Yeah.
Now, I was a child. I hadn't hit puberty. So I wasn't able to get physically aroused. But I did get excited because I knew that if my mom or my dad caught me, they were gonna whoop me. For my dad, it was the belt, the shoe, something was coming out, right?
Mhm.
To beat me. So the fact that I could look at nudity and get away from it gave me a high. It gave me a rush. Like, I got away with it. But the problem was that any time from then onwards that I didn't get what I wanted from my parents, I felt lonely, I had a strong emotion, I would seek out nudity to change my emotional state. So I just didn't know. I didn't know why I was doing it. I was unconscious and innocent. And this continued until I was about 13 years old, hit puberty, and learned how to masturbate. Then it all made sense. Once I experienced orgasm, I was like, oh, okay, okay. So this is the connection. This is why adults are into this. So for me, that became my mission. I was like, there is nothing that feels better than this. So I will use this to make myself feel better. I didn't see the connection from my childhood. So everything that people told me about sex, about safe sex, about why it's not good, it went out the window. All I knew is that this makes me feel good. So, being a teenager, going to school, getting bad grades, having acne, the girl in the class doesn't like you, there's a guy who's better, you don't know how to talk to girls, you feel insecure about your body, other guys are getting jacked before you, they're guys are looking like grown men and you're
Mm.
still a boy, but you're in the same class. I'll feel bad. I'll go
Yeah.
home and I'll
Mm.
find pornography. Then guys started passing around the magazines, in school. And back then, like I just turned 40 years old. Back then, it was still like video CDs. There wasn't streaming anything. There weren't websites for that. You had to go to like the cyber cafe to like watch porn and hide and do all these things. So I just started doing that. And Toby and to the listeners, there's a few listening. Some of you may relate to this story. Many people got exposed to pornography. For some, it became a problem. For some, it didn't. But by the time I was in college, that was when I came to realize that I had a problem because I was still unable to have conversations with women. I was still very isolated and introverted. And the only time that I could approach a woman was after I had drank. So I'll go to bars and clubs, drink, get a little bit of liquid courage, go out, try to talk to women. Obviously, I'm drunk, try grind on them and dance. They're like, nah. I'll come home, I would watch pornography. And then before I knew it, and some of you might relate to this, regular pornography was not enough. It had to become more and more hardcore, more and more crazy. Eventually, I started seeking intimacy because I wasn't getting it in my life. But unfortunately, there's nothing intimate about pornography. There's nothing intimate about watching two people having sex. Some people think it is. Often on my Instagram, my YouTube comments on social media, when I talk about these things, people show up in the comments and they're like, no, what of those of us who don't have access to sex? What are we supposed to do? How are we supposed to satisfy ourselves? What if it's just entertainment for us? I'm like, think about it, right? Like, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with pornography, right? Let's make that clear. From
Yeah.
the beginning of time, we've been drawing penises on the wall.
Mhm.
Go in the bathroom, guys will be guys. We're gonna do that. We're gonna draw all those things, right?
Yeah.
So let's not try to ignore human nature or repress it. My problem is with the people who are doing it to the point that it is impacting other domains of their life. And that's what was happening to me. I was unable to get into a relationship because I started believing that the only value a relationship has was sex. I confused intimacy with pornography. I did not know the difference. And there
Yeah.
are a lot of you out there that still don't know the difference. There are a lot of men and women that don't know how to connect because sex is number one first and the relationship is number two. But often sex is number one because of their exposure to pornography in the years when they were single. And so at this point, when I would be coming back from bars, unsuccessful in my quest to find women, I would start getting on webcams and talking to women. And, they are racking up spending my credit card, right, for the minutes I'm talking with them. And once I started getting broke and then overdrawn, then I would hit up my parents for money. They were like, well, we gave you money for college. Like, what are you doing? Like, where's the money going? What are you spending it on? Then I started getting into debt just for that. And then it got to the point, unfortunately, where I started seeking anonymous sex. I was getting on like places like Craigslist, other sites, trying to just meet people for that. Fortunately, I was raised in such a way that um, even in the worst case scenarios, there were certain things I would not do, which is the importance of, I would say, having a good and right now I'm not a Christian, but I do believe in God and I still pray because that's the way I was raised.
Mm.
But while I'm not involved in organized religion, it was very important that I had that in my childhood.
Yeah.
Because at the last minute when I wanted to like do something like pay a prostitute or something like that, that belief would come up like, you were not raised like this. What are you doing? Like, you're better than this. You come from an educated home. Sure, we were lower class, we didn't have much, but this is not how you were raised. The day that I realized that I had a problem was one day I'd met a girl from Craigslist. I'd had a few drinks, come back from the club, and she just sent, she was like, hey, looking for somebody. And I saw, oh, that was 1 minute ago on this site. So I was like, all right. Messaged her, and she was like, yeah, come and meet me at this address. So I jumped in my car, drunk, and drove off here. All I had was a blurry picture. So I wasn't thinking with the right head, let's say that. Drove out there,
Yeah.
parked. It was cold. It was winter. And I parked at the behind the house. And she was like, oh, yeah, I'm babysitting. Let me just put this last kid to bed and I'll come out and meet you. Just come out from your car and wait. But I was very paranoid because I was drinking. I was driving. I wasn't sure. I was excited. So I was like, nah, I'll just wait for you to come out. So my car was an automatic. So I left it on drive. And while I was sitting there, a shadow came from the side. I heard a voice, like a man's voice, and the side mirror, a window of my car shattered. Somebody hit it with something. It was a setup. I just had a reaction to that. So I was shocked by it, and I hit the accelerator. So the car just shot off. It just drove. It drove through someone's backyard, through all the kids' toys. There was a small kids' pool, out to the other side of the road. And then I got control of the vehicle, got back on the highway, and started driving. And I'll never forget this. Driving home, I was shaking. My whole body was shaking. My hands were on the steering wheel, and I kept telling myself, JK, you were not raised like this. You were not raised like this. You were not raised like this. I drove straight back home, came out. After I'd freaked out about, whether there were police was going to find me or whatever, I decided that day that I had a big problem. I had a huge problem. I was like, all of this started from pornography. I didn't know about this stuff with my childhood, all of those things. These are when I started seeking professional help. I came to realize that because I never dealt with this problem, it had now invaded my life. It was putting my freedom and possibly even my life at risk. And that's when I began the journey to try and end my behavior.
Wow. JK, thank you so much for sharing that. Like you, yeah, that was really deep. That was really deep, and I have so many follow-up questions already.
Go for it.
But no, I'd like to start from the top. Like, first of all, I'd like to say thank God for your good home training because that saved you a lot.
Oh yeah, it did.
Yeah, and
It did. I
that
mean,
helped you a lot in a lot of ways. And talking about home training and your parents, bringing you up, do you think if your parents taught you about sex and pornography from a very young age, do you think your take or the way you saw porn at the age of 8 would have changed, or maybe you would have even ran away from it, even at the mere sight of it?
yeah, definitely.
Hmm.
I think that if I was told clearly, like not by being punished, right, which is the way that I feel that I was, like when nudity was in front of me, my parents would freak out.
Mhm.
They would freak out like, hey, so what are you looking at? What are you
Yeah.
looking at? Like, look. So I think for children, what that does is that it brings up two emotions. The first is shame, and because an adult is telling them that it's bad. But the second is curiosity,
Mm.
right? Is
Yes.
curiosity. And um, that's why kids get punished. Kids get punished because they're curious. They're curious. Hey, what is fire? If I put my finger in the electric socket, what will happen? Right?
Mm.
And most of the time, we have to find out by firsthand experience,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
But you know, I think if the seed was planted in the right way, in a way such as, like, my parents told me that drugs were bad, right? They were
Mm.
like, if you take drugs, like, you're going to end up in prison, you're going to throw your life away, you're going to embarrass your family. Like, in no uncertain terms, it was said, and
Mm.
the imagery was there. And for many other things, armed robbery, stealing, like we knew these things. But then when it came to sex, the most that people would say was, um, um, whatever the commandment is about adultery,
Mm.
and then some things from the Bible.
Yeah.
There was no conversation. So I
Mm.
think, yes, if they had the conversation with me the same way they would have done about stealing, about lying, about all of this, the seed would have been planted, and there wouldn't have been shame because they just had an open conversation about sex. They didn't make it seem, hey, we're hiding this, it's weird. It was their issue. They had their own shame about it culturally.
Yes, yes, I can totally relate with that too. Like I can remember growing up back home in Nigeria where I come from, and
Mm.
whenever there's like a sex scene in a movie or something, then you have to close your eyes while the sex scene. And like you said correctly, well, like that's just make that curiosity grow in you. You're like, what is this thing that I'm closing my eyes for? How does it look like? And then all of a sudden, when you grow up or you get exposed to it, you're like, oh yeah, this is it. I see. Then you maybe because of good home training, you run away from it. But then your curiosity will keep on calling. Let me see that thing again and see how it looks like.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, and over, and the circle starts that way. And
Yeah.
yeah, it could go down a rabbit hole. Yeah.
I went all the way.
So from your experience and everything that you've
Mm.
gone through, thanks so much for just going deep down that way to explain everything. How would you describe pornography addiction to someone who's listening out there?
Yeah. So we use the word addiction mainly because it's something that people can relate to. When you use the word addiction, it gets people's attention. But technically speaking, it's not really an addiction. It's more of a compulsive behavior, right? So compulsive means when you are engaging in a behavior that has no benefits to you, yet despite the obvious negative impact on your life, you continue to engage in the behavior.
Mm.
So in this case, it would be you've watched porn, and yeah, it was enjoyable, but you've watched it to the point where it just doesn't give you the hit that it used to. Now you're doing it out of habit, even when you don't want to do it. You're like, I'm not aroused or turned on right now. I'm bored, really. Instead of me going to find something to occupy my time, I choose to spend 45 minutes looking for the right scene in pornography or whatever to feel better about being bored, like in the most simple way. And then you keep doing it. Then you tell yourself, I'm going to stop, but you don't.
Mhm.
See, that's a problem right there. And that's when something becomes compulsive, right? There are various levels to it, right? For
Mm.
some, it's just a habit. They didn't know that it could become compulsive. It's something they do maybe twice a month. And then next thing they know, their situation changed. Maybe lockdown during COVID, right? They were spending a lot more time at home. Maybe they went through a breakup. They don't have access to sex. Maybe there's something traumatic that happened in their life and they're dealing with the pain, spending a lot of time alone. This is just something that they were doing to make themselves feel better. But
Mm.
unfortunately, it got out of hand and then it could go to another level. Another level is where what you're watching is not enough to satisfy you because you've created too many dopamine receptors in your brain. So that just doesn't do it for you. So you need more and you need more. So you start changing the genres and the types of pornography that you're watching. Sometimes you watch things and after you masturbate, you realize, you know what? That wasn't in tune with my value. I would not do that. But
Mm.
why would I watch that? Now, first of all, it's okay to have fantasies as a human being. Human beings, we are designed to have fantasies. But the only thing about fantasies is they're usually supposed to be personal or shared with somebody that we're in an intimate relationship with. And even at that, there's still some fantasies that the reason we would not share it with other people is because all of us, every single human being, is afraid of how we would be judged if
Yeah.
somebody knew what our real fantasies were. But the porn industries know this. So the porn industry creates our fantasies for us. And the more we watch something, just as somebody can spend time on Instagram and see stuff on Instagram, and they start thinking that, yeah, it's possible to do this. Yeah, why not? Right? Like, I didn't start a podcast because I was sitting in a vacuum. I saw people doing it, and somewhere, somehow, the seed was planted that I could do this. Somewhere, somehow, I was encouraged, and I saw other people doing it. And next thing you know, I'm doing it. But when we're exposed to anything online, visually, over and over again, it is normalized. And for some of us, it is normalized to the point that we believe we can do it. Hence, you and I are here with the Shure microphones, right? Which means we put time into this, right?
Yeah, that's
There's
true.
research that was done. This is not random, right?
No.
Research was done. Stuff was designed to do this. But people will do the same thing with pornography. And they start making the mistake of thinking that some of those things are things that actually happen in real life.
Yeah.
And it continues like this.
Yeah. So, JK, would you say it's better for us to run away, totally put off pornography, or how can one deal with this topic of porn addiction?
Yeah. What was the first question?
Like, would you say porn is bad, run away from it? Like any hearing of it, any call of it, any spelling of it anywhere, just block it, run away, avoid it.
Yeah. So I'm a realist, right? The right message, right being the message that people would like to hear, is that you should stay away from pornography completely.
Mm.
You should never use pornography ever. And there are many people who do that. I think that pornography in its current form, high-speed internet pornography, is very dangerous. And I believe it should be completely avoided. However, there are a lot of people who, if they are listening to this podcast and they have been watching pornography on a weekly basis for all their 20s, for example, this does not seem possible. Or if somebody's 18, 19, 20 and they're not sexually experienced, this is not possible in their head. So I can say this and the message will sound good. There are a lot of people that, oh, yes, pornography is bad. Stay away from it. Oh, I was delivered by Jesus Christ from pornography. All those people are still watching porn. I know, because I've done this for 12 years. Like, thank God Jesus delivered me from it. JK, the minute they come and they're like, I used to deal with this, but I got delivered from it. I'm like, you are a liar. Because, and I want to make this clear, right? I want to make one thing clear. I actually shot a video on this morning. I'm not saying that anybody who was delivered in a religious way is lying. I'm just saying that our sexual behavior is such an important part of our life. It's why you and I literally exist here, because of this biological urge. And if somebody claims that they were delivered, but they are not in a monogamous relationship, they haven't been in a relationship, then what they're saying is if they were delivered 3 years ago, since that time, they have not done anything with their sexual urge. And that's not normal, because that leads to sexual repression. Sexual repression is when there's a biological function that your body wants you to engage in, but you constantly force it away because you are like, this is shameful, this is sinful, this is this. You push it down. It is going to come out some other way. And usually it comes out in a deviant way. All you need to do is look at any Abrahamic religion, right? And look at all the scandals that the priests or the imams or even Abrahamic cultures, I won't say any in particular, but certain parts of the world, we're like, why do they do this, all these weird things? You know, why when their women are repressed and this is repressed? It's because of sexual repression. So what does this have to do with pornography? What it means is that it is everybody's responsibility, because sex is a private thing too. It's your body, sex. It's your responsibility to define your limits and your healthy boundaries with your sexual behavior, which is what we teach here at Porn Reboots. The first thing we have people do is to define their reboots. Like, the reason we use the term reboots instead of recovery is that the people like, hey, you're recovering from an addiction. It's also you are recovering that which you lost to your addiction, right? You lost intimacy, you lost friends, you lost your health, you lost your mindset, you lost your belief in God, you lost your faith. You're recovering those things. There's just one problem with that.
Okay.
If you were an addict at 21 to 25, or you were from 21 years old, right? And you ended your addiction at the age of 31 or 32,
Mm.
and you were delivered from it, let's say. What are you recovering? You've lost those years. You can't go back to being a 21-year-old. You can't go back to the club. You can't you are where you are. But the problem with recovery and therapy these days is it tells you that you can get those things back, but it doesn't address the man or woman where they are at this moment. That's why I came up with rebooting, because I tried to recover and I couldn't, because I kept thinking of, oh man, all those years in college that I lost to this, all the time I wasted, all the women I could have been with. I kept regretting it, and that I would feel bad for myself, and I would go back to the behavior. And this is a P with the reset button in the middle. And what happens when your computer has too many tabs open and everything is slowing down, right? You don't just like open another tab and try to fix something. You just hit the reset button. Your life has been filled with so many things that you don't need. So many negative thoughts, so many negative behaviors, even so many negative relationships, even on your phone. It is a perfectly healthy thing to hit the reset button right there and reset your life. Okay, I am Y years old. This is where I will start. I will rebuild my values from the ground up. I will rebuild my friendships from the ground up. And I will only use my past as lessons. When I look back to my past, I don't look back with shame and be, oh, cringing. Like, oh, man, I can't believe I did that. No, you look at that and be like, what was the lesson I learned from that? The moment you decide that you are going to start from where you are here, right now, to move forward, you don't let go of the past. The past becomes only lessons. And thus, you cannot slip or relapse because this is not your history anymore. You've let go. You're just like, well, my history is only for learning. It's a complete self-image change, right? So that's where the concept of rebooting comes from. I think prior to that, I was talking about the repression piece of that.
Yes.
Right. So you how would I put it? When you hit the reset button on your out of control sexual behavior, there's, how would I put it? Take me back to your question. I got lost because I went off on a tangent on the
No,
reboot stuff.
it's fine. But
Yeah.
before I take it back to the question, I
Yeah.
would just like to add to that. Like, I like the fact that you make mention of saying you can't regain those 10 years that you lost, for example, but you picking up yourself from that point where you are. Like, this is where I am, Toby, and how can I build up my life from that point? I love that about your program, about your reboot program. Like, you say, okay,
Absolutely.
these are the lessons I've learned, and these are the things I have to do to build my life up. I don't have to get back the 10 years, or how can I make the next 10 years even better than the last 10 years? That's
Yes.
amazing. That's really good. So, I mean, the original question was like, do we have to say no to porn, like avoid porn totally? And what do we have to do then to overcome the porn addiction?
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned, it's up to the individual, as far as I'm concerned, to decide what their limits with pornography are going to be.
Mm.
Personally, for me, I tried many times, and often it was something that just led me back to the compulsive behavior, right? People do have to take a very close look at their life and decide the role that pornography plays or doesn't play. And for many people today, it does not play a positive role. For many of them, their compulsive behavior with pornography is also a sign, and they don't view it as the right sign. It is a message that they are usually not living in their purpose. What does that mean? It means when you're addicted to something, think of all the energy you're putting into it. There are guys who are like, oh, I had a long day. I'm so tired. I worked like 14 hours today. But then why were you up? You came back at 9 o'clock and you were there watching pornography till 1 o'clock. The guys who are addicted to video games will do. I was like, where did that extra energy come from?
Mm.
It is the same energy that is within you, but it is not being put towards something else. There is a pain. There's something that you are medicating within you, oftentimes when you keep engaging in this behavior. And that energy you're using to medicate that, the pain is still there, but the pain can be used for artistic or creative endeavors. It can be put towards building a business. It can be put and transformed into something else. But you have chosen to use it on entertainment, on a behavior that's self-destructive, right? So the saying we have in Porn Reboot is, you are the best expert at yourself. And as much as I'm a professional, I don't have the rights. And I've had arguments with, there are people who do what I do too, but they're more religious and they're ministers. I've had arguments with them. They're not big fans of me because for them, they use the Bible and they lay down a law, but they're still men and women laying down the law for sovereign individuals. You must not do this. If you do this, you are sinning. But what I found is there are many people who have left the church and come to me to seek help. And the reason why is they came in and they're like, they're still relapsing in the church. I was like, well, why is that? Because of the shame. Because every time they fail, they feel bad. They feel they have sinned. I'm the one that has to remind them that the original Greek meaning of the word sin is to miss the mark. And then they're like, it's like, you remember that. It is not that you're born a sinner. It just means you're born a human. Dr. Albert Ellis, the founder of rational emotive behavioral therapy, said that anyone can recover from an addictive behavior, but nobody can recover from being human. So when you ask the question of, like, should we just stay away from it forever and blah, 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 it's, you have to decide for yourself. You are not perfect, right? And ending the behavior. There are 3 ways to do it. I keep it very simple in my program. The first thing you need to change is your habits, then your lifestyle, and then your self-image. The habits part is easier for most people. It's what you will see a lot of people talking about, how to end your behavior with pornography, right? Some people will say when you feel the urge, distract yourself, go for a run, take a cold shower, put a porn blocker on your computer, right? Limit the use of your phone, use a lockbox, so many different things. And habits are fine, right? The only problem is that habits require willpower before they become habitual, right? And that's very difficult for a lot of people to do, a lot of people to maintain. The second thing is that for the habits to be sustained, it has to become a part of your lifestyle. And that's the second piece. A lot of people talk about lifestyle. Now, whether it's religious or a 12-step group, you'll find people say live a lifestyle of celibacy or lifestyle of sexual control. That's good. You can live that lifestyle, but what happens when your lifestyle changes? What happens when you move to a different country? What happens when you move upwards or downwards in the economic ladder? Right? What if you just suddenly have to hustle a lot more because something unfortunate happened to you? More stress. Your boundaries are not there. The filter you had on your computer, you may not be able to have it anymore. And once the lifestyle changes for a lot of people, they go back to the behavior. A very common one is there are a lot of men who will make the decision to end their behavior right before they get married. They'll reach out and say, JK, I've been engaging in this behavior, but I realize it's very childish behavior, very juvenile behavior. I'm going to get married, right? Probably going to have a kid with my wife within the next 2 years. It's time for me to become a mature adult. And, so they go through the program, but I remind them, it's like your lifestyle will change. But the moment you have a child, you have to be prepared because your lifestyle is changing. You're now waking up at 4 a.m. and you're more tired. There's more stress. Your partner may not be available for sexual intimacy. And then they find out that they're slipping and going back to the behavior. This happens so often, which is why when people say I was delivered, I don't believe them because they're not talking about the different lifestyles. You were delivered where you are right now. It is forever as long as you're willing to live the lifestyle.
Yeah, you have to be determined. You have to be very
You have to be determined. It's just like you were delivered. Something happened to you. But did something happen to your self-image? Which is the final piece. Habit, lifestyle, and self-image. What is self-image? Self-image is the way you view yourself. So Toby, if you were just walking down the street and you saw a wallet laying down there. You opened the wallet and you were like, wow, there's like 4,000 German marks in here, right? Now, I'm assuming you're not the type of person who would just put it in his pocket and leave. Why wouldn't you do that though?
Because I was taught right. Yeah,
Because you say, yeah, it's not the right thing to do. Like,
yeah,
if
it's
they
not the right
had
thing to
this
do.
much money in here,
Mm,
they probably needed it for something. Like,
of
they're
course.
probably like looking for it, worried about it. Like, I'm gonna give it back to them. Not that I need a reward or anything, but this is not something I feel good holding on to,
Of
right?
course. Yeah.
That's the self-image that you have that was built over time, decision after decision. Because you were raised a certain way, at many points you had a choice: go this way or go this way. Sometimes you went this way, but most of the time you went this way. And each time you went this way, it built on that self-image of who you are. But unfortunately, when it comes to something like pornography, we feel the urge, and because nobody is watching us, one of the problems with pornography is anonymous, it's private. No one's watching us, no one's keeping us accountable. Then we can just keep going this way and this way and this way. That's the self image we've built up. So no matter how much we change our habits or we change our lifestyle, we have not changed the self image. So I don't care about people who say, oh, it was delivered spontaneously, something happened. It does not happen spontaneously. A decision can be made spontaneously, but you have to make the decision every time the urge comes up to go this way, this way, this way. And once the self image is changed, then that's when you're free of the behavior, because you are now no longer a man who needs that. Like, I don't need it. It's just like, like candy, right? Some people, they're candy all of us like. They're sweet things we like. But you could go to the gas station or the store and you see it. As a kid, you would have taken that candy 100% of the time, every time. But as an adult, you could be like, I remember this. I could, but I don't need to. Like, it would be nice, but I don't. Why? What changed? Did you just stop liking sweet things? No.
No.
Your self-image changed. Why? Because now other nutritious things are more important to you. When it comes to pornography now, it's not like, oh yeah, you would still watch porn if the opportunity was there. But now it's no, because now there are more important things, like intimacy, like the way I view myself and feel about myself, like compassion for other human beings, like being busy and running a business, being a responsible adult.
Yeah.
That's how you're free of this behavior.
Yeah. If I understood you rightly, it's like going from, oh, I need porn to release, to, to escape, to, I don't need this, I don't need it. I can, fall back to something healthy, to even let go, or even deal with the trauma that I'm going through, to talk of, than just, looking for a cheap escape out of my issues or problems in life. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And, I love the fact that you talked about, Christians, or no, or religion, basically. Like, you get prayed for and you're like, yes, you're delivered, and everyone believes, yes, I've been delivered, and from that day. Yeah, I also grew up in a Christian home. I'm still a
Okay.
Christian also, and I've had a lot of these experiences also, like, or even from friends and people. But then I've also heard from a lot of pastors that are very honest and brutal with it, or very, plain with this, blunt with this, basically. And they tell you, yes, you might be prayed for right now and you've gotten your deliverance, but faith without action is dead. You have to
Exactly.
walk. And that's why in my head right now, I was just integrating what you said, everything you've explained, practical tools, to that faith that you have, or to that, deliverance. If you don't do the work that you've explained, you will fall back into it. You fall back into that addiction, into that habit. And if you have not let go of that image that you had, you would find yourself back where you were at the beginning. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes.
No, I absolutely agree with you. I think the whole concept of being delivered, is the proof of it is in how much you actually value it.
Mm.
And for a lot of people, I think culturally, when religious people, it's a thing of, unfortunately, also a thing of pride to be, and it's a mark. It's something that shows that you've reached a certain level in your spiritual growth, right?
Mhm.
So even in the comment section, people are very proud to show up and tell me who couldn't care less that they have been delivered. I'm like, if you've been delivered from this, right? Why are so many hundreds of you coming to my comment section just to make a point? Thank God I was delivered from this. I was delivered. Jesus is the only way. I was like, why? Because I'm not talking to you. It's very clear from the video that I am free of this behavior.
Yeah.
I'm talking to other people. Why is it such an important point? Now, one of the reasons is they experience something positive in their life and they want to share it with others.
Yes.
But another reason is it is a reinforcement. Because people can say anything they want to say online. They feel the negativity because they may have engaged in the behavior recently. And it's a reminder to them. A lot of people will say, I'm delivered. It is a reminder to themselves. They don't know they're doing it unconsciously, but they have to say it so that they know the type of person that they are, right? It's not a good idea to call them out on it because then they'll fight you in the comment section. But I love what you said. At the end of the day, you're right. We all have to do the work to maintain that which we have been fortunate enough to be blessed with or that we've gained. Everything requires work.
Yes, everything requires work. And also, I believe from growing up a little bit in the past years, I also permit myself to make mistakes. Like you could always have relapse along the way, along the point. And that's why I want to ask you this question, JK. Like, how do you deal with relapse? Like now we're on this journey of recovery. No, not recovery. Maybe reporting from porn addiction.
Yeah.
But something happened along the line, maybe a change of status, and then I found myself relapsing. What do I do? How do I deal with that?
Okay. Well, first, there are two things. There's a slip and there's a relapse, right? A slip is accidental, right? You didn't see it coming. It just came as a shock to you because you thought you were doing very well, right? A relapse is a purposeful return to a behavior, purposeful and repeated return to a behavior that you said that you were not going to return to. So you told yourself, I'm not going to return to this. But because you got very stressful, you planned it in your head. And then you did it. Now, a slip, one time when you catch it, you can prevent it from becoming a relapse. But if you let it go, and let's say you slip one day and you're like, man, I was doing so well. But then that voice in your head says, well, you did it today. You might as well just do it later on today and call it 24 hours. Tomorrow we'll start afresh, right?
Yeah.
That's the trick. Then it becomes a relapse at that point. So understanding the difference is very important. The concept that we have that makes what we do very different is that for the average person, a relapse is an opportunity for them to feel bad about themselves, to feel bad, feel guilty, feel, I failed, like I relapsed. I don't even see relapses as a negative thing. For me, as far as I'm concerned, slips and relapses are just data. It's data. It's, well, what happened? A client comes to me, JK, I relapsed. It's like, well, why are you so sad? Right? We have an opportunity here, right? Because we can find out why you relapsed. You're going to relapse usually for the same reasons. Was it a self-care issue? Were you tired, hungry, angry, lonely? What was going on emotionally with you? Right? I was just very stressed from work. Right? I was barely sleeping because I was thinking about this stressful thing. I'd sleep only 4 or 5 hours. I'd wake up. I did that for like 3 days in a row. Right? And I just wasn't getting enough rest. I was sitting in front of the computer for 2-3 hours till I got very stressed out and agitated. I wouldn't take a break from the computer. I was like, okay, self-care issue. Was it a boundary issue? Right? It's a boundary issue. What's a boundary, first of all? A boundary, the way we define it, is the place where something that is good for you ends and something that is not good for you begins. For some people, the boundary could be TikTok. For some people, it's just like they're like, every time I get caught up in the TikTok or Instagram world, the next step I notice is porn follows somehow after that, right? Or get on YouTube. Too much entertainment. To reach the crescendo of that, I must view pornography. And that's usually how the night will end. With me in bed, playing around with TikTok and Instagram, and then I have to masturbate because I can't go to sleep because all that blue light is in my brain now. Right? So that's what happens to a lot of guys. Yeah. And they're like, wow, JK, that's exactly what happens. I'm like, exactly. So you cross the boundary. What's the boundary you have to set? They're like, oh, the boundary is no phone in bed. I was like, well, you can go try that, but then you find you're still doing it. What if the boundary was no TikTok?
That's difficult.
Right? And they're just like, what would you mean, like, no TikTok? And I'm very, very direct with people. I tell them, like, and we don't work with everybody at Porn Reboots. We offer coaching services, but we don't work with everybody because not everybody is willing to go the distance. I tell people, go back to your church and go work with your pastor and your church group. I don't need your money. I won't work with you if you're not willing to go all the way. What's all the way? All the way is, if you're going to use social media, be social on it. But if you're a man who's really serious about sexual control, then you also have to be serious about everything else in your life. See, pornography is not the problem. Pornography is just the symptom of the problem. That's all it is. The symptom could be video games, it could be alcohol, it could be sex addiction, it could be food addiction, it could be YouTube addiction. It's a symptom of something else. And there's nobody I know who is addicted to pornography who is where they want to be in life. They often have self-esteem issues, regardless of how they present themselves in front of other people. And I tell them, I call them out. When we end this behavior, and we're still talking about relapse, we look at every aspect of what we call your reboot capital. We look at your social reboot capital, which includes your relationships and dating. We look at your financial reboot capital, which is where I catch a lot of guys, right? They have all these big aspirations, and I'm like, but you're spending 3 hours a week watching pornography, and you're broke, and you haven't gotten the degree you want. You're not making how much you want to make. If your parents called you right now and said, I broke my leg, I have a health issue, I'm older, can you send them money? You can't? Then you don't deserve to be spending time on TikTok. Social media is a tool for the men who are serious about this. It is a tool for you to get your message out, to change lives, and to get paid. That's it, because it's doing nothing else for you. Once in a while, you might find a great tip. You might be exposed to an interesting person. But 90% of the time, you have to use this as a tool because it is using you as a tool. You are always paying for something. Just because TikTok if something is free for you to access, guess what the deal is?
You are the product.
You are the product. You got it.
Yeah.
You are the product. Do you want to be a product and a consumer, or do you want to produce? Do you want that which is within you, like I do, which I made a decision to do that many years ago, to become the product and then put it out there? And so we address every aspect of that. And within those areas are the things, the boundaries that they're crossing. So when you're just, leaving TikTok, I'm like, well, what are you doing on TikTok? You have a business? Are you selling on TikTok? Do you have 50 influencers that are slinging your product on e-com or TikTok shop? They're like, what's TikTok shop? I'm like, get out of here. Seriously.
Yeah.
I was like, so you're just there watching these chicks doing the, I don't know, whatever explicit challenge. You're watching the next challenge. Ah, ha, 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 ha. Hey, let me show my friend this. I was like, you're wasting your life. There's a guy flying in a private jet because you're one of the millions of people just sharing stuff that somebody else is going to buy at some point. And they're just looking at me going, I just came to talk about ending my behavior with porn, bro.
Yes.
But that is the fact. And when you realize that, some people show up and they think, oh, it was just going to be about ending my behavior with pornography. And then I start showing them that, you think I made this a career just to help people end pornography? This is a symptom of something missing in your life. And usually, when you end your behavior with pornography, you find out what that roadblock was all this time. There's so many guys that are just like, I just can't seem to make it. I can't seem to be focused enough. I can't seem to be determined enough. I don't seem to be on purpose. Something is, as Christians call it, the cornerstone behavior in your life. What is that one behavior that has followed you for so many years? It's not porn for everybody. For some, it's other things. For many, it is porn. And within that, you will find the thing that will change you. My clients often follow me because they know my story. Up until the age of 24, I was completely broke. I had nothing. At one point, I was almost homeless. In the winter, it was so cold. My roommate here in Kansas was an international student, so he would go back home for the winter, and I would just stay there. I couldn't pay the bill. Electricity was cut off. There was nothing. For one winter, I was just stealing whatever food he had left, spaghetti there, and I couldn't even cook the spaghetti because there was no electricity or anything. So I just soaked the spaghetti in cold water, and I would eat it. I was broke. I had no relationships. I was at that point. That was when people started realizing, like, man, that guy's a little bit weird. Like, he's the guy. He's like, anytime there are women, he's always like looking at them. I couldn't focus on a conversation. I weighed about 120 pounds. I was really skinny. Didn't speak much. Anytime there's electricity or a little bit of time, I'll be there. World of Warcraft, playing video games. That was my life till I made the decision to end my behavior with pornography. And I found out that it was the symptom of low self-esteem, of a poor self-image, of a lack of discipline. And the more I engaged in it to medicate those issues, Toby, and those of you listening, the less I was able to use and develop the appropriate coping strategies to improve my self-esteem, to be disciplined and sit down and study, to do research, to go to the gym. Even my personal hygiene was up. I wasn't caring so much about how I looked. Why? Because if you're not getting girls, if you're not talking to people, if you feel nobody cares for you, you'll slowly start letting things drop here and there. You don't even know you're doing it. You just start letting it drop. We know people like that, who you're like, they're not even aware of their body odor or little things like this. They don't see the connection to something. They gave up on something somewhere and they became ignorant of it. So porn was the cornerstone thing and changed it. And for those of you who are listening, who may find yourself in a relapse, just remember that it is data. And within the data, when you relapse, you sit, you look back and go like, okay, all right, I feel bad about this. I'm not going to beat myself up, right? We just talked about being humans and giving out. You talked about giving yourself a chance to make mistakes. You made a mistake. Learn from it. And you'll come to find that there are only about 2 or 3 reasons that you're engaging in this behavior. Now you're able to isolate the problem, and then you can seek support around it. You can set a boundary. You can fix whatever it is.
Yeah. I really love that. Like looking at the root cause of it all, like what is triggering all the behavior and trying to tackle that. Yeah, right. And before I go on, I have a lot of questions to ask you, but I'd just like you to talk about your Reboot program, your coaching program, because I know it could help a lot of people out there. I would like you to talk about it, and also I know you kind of offer like accountability programs to like help people on that journey. So please, can you share a little bit about that with us?
Sure, thank you. We have 2 programs. One's called the Intensive Program, which is for business owners, entrepreneurs, high-level executives. So usually men over the age of 30, sometimes 35 plus. This is if you are an individual who needs to be discreet. Like you can't go and tell people at church that you're dealing with this. There are very few resources. So we have a private group for men like this. When you put in an application, it's always private and discreet. And the conversation we'll have with you will never be uncomfortable. So a lot of guys who are just like, I'm putting my information here. This is weird to talk about. Whoever you're going to be talking to in the company is going to be somebody who has overcome the behavior themselves and they've received professional training. So you'll feel very comfortable talking to them. You're not talking to a therapist that has never dealt with this problem before. Then we have the implementation program, which is open to men over the age of 18. This is a much more affordable program. Now, we offer coaching 7 days a week. We have coaches that are there every day. We have doctors, Dr. Jessica Eastman, Dr. Rankin, Coach Milan. We have professionals who are in the group doing group coaching. There's opportunity for one-on-one. And when you come into the group, there are hundreds of clients in there as well. You get the opportunity to have daily accountability, which means you'll be put in small WhatsApp or Telegram groups. And every time you slip or relapse, you report to your brothers in this group. We also use a software called Covenant Eyes, which you have to install on all your devices. What Covenant Eyes does is that every time that you view pornography or search for something explicit, it takes a screenshot of it, doesn't tell you, it blurs it out, and it texts it to your accountability partner.
That's not good. That's not nice.
It's not good. Yeah, yeah. So it sends it to your accountability partner. So
Yeah.
first of all, it's a great deterrent. Secondly, you can't lie anymore. Porn addicts are all liars. Hey, what were you watching? Nothing, man. I was just hanging out. It wasn't me. Well, we saw it at 8:06 p.m. You searched for this, and you went to this website, and we can't see what it is, but unfortunately, we can see the name of the scene that you were watching, and now we know what it is. So we have great accountability, which first of all, it gives you the benefits of a group. First of all, some guys are like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready to be in a group. The first thing is you need inspiration. You need to see that it's possible to overcome this behavior. And all these things I talked about, my life changing, transforming myself. You need to actually start seeing men transform their life. You need to see men who were addicted to this, men whose wives were about to leave them because of this behavior, change themselves and have healthy sexual lives. Second thing is you need encouragement. It's very easy to feel like this is such a powerful urge and you just can't overcome it. And when you get encouragement from other men who actually care for you, for the first time ever, you realize, wow, I have good close friends, but I don't have masculine male men around me who I can talk to about sex and porn. It's very difficult these days to be a man and vulnerable. I'm a very masculine man. I have a very aggressive vibe, but at the same time, I have a lot of compassion. I will talk to a brother about anything that's going on. We will laugh, cry together on Zoom. It's all good. I have no shame. And that's a beautiful thing. The process of ending this behavior with pornography took away all the shame. I will talk about anything. I will cry with the brother. I'm not being afraid of being called weak or anything like that because I know I'm not. I've just dealt with all those issues within me. So you get the benefit of doing that when you're in the program with all these other people. So there are many benefits of it, but what I recommend to everybody first is to use our free material. Wherever you are in the world, our podcast is called the Porn Reboot Podcast. We've got about 580 episodes, and I've got a YouTube channel called Porn Reboots. You can find me or use my name, JK. And I got about 1,200 videos on there. We also have a free Facebook group that you can join and post anonymously in, and it's called the Porn Reboot Group for Entrepreneurs on Facebook. You can search it and find it, or you can just find me online and send me a DM, and we'll chat.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that. I'll place the link to your website in the show notes of this episode. Every other information is available there. You could just go to the website. It has a lot of information that you could, start with already to get across to JK. Yeah, that's
I appreciate
awesome.
it.
Thank you so much. I mean, I have, I think, 2 or 3 more questions. I don't know how many, but they're just running in my head right now.
Go for it.
And that's basically, growing up in the church, you get to learn about, stay away from porn because watching porn will lead to you masturbating and, maybe other sexual habits, basically. So I'd like you to enlighten me on this. Like, what's the connection between pornography and masturbation? Can you masturbate without pornography, or are they intertwined? And, all the other sexual behaviors like edging and whatever that comes with it, or sexual addictions too, are they all together or they could be separated?
That's a great question. One of the most common ones I get is that will pornography lead to sex addiction? And that really depends on the individual. Like I shared with you, there were many things I could have done, but I didn't do them because my upbringing had set an internal boundary in my self-image. So it hadn't set the boundary for pornography, but it had set the boundary for sex. So I didn't become a sex addict because my parents had told me straight up about sex. Like if that girl gets pregnant, you're dead. I wasn't even talking to any girl. But then I saw what happened to my neighbors and when stuff like that happened. So that was in there. They didn't talk about porn. So it really depends. For some people, if you're comfortable with sex, it can often lead to that. When it comes to masturbation, that is a very personal decision because for some, it is intertwined. For some men, masturbation always came with pornography. So some men will try to masturbate in moderation without pornography, and they often find that it gets them back to pornography. What I recommend for these men is to go through a program that teaches you how to end your behavior with pornography and stop masturbating at the same time because they are connected. Once you realize that you can control both your masturbation and pornography, then it's up to you if you want to continue to masturbate. But one of the things that a lot of men start to realize is when you become very self-aware in the process of ending your behavior with pornography, unlike men who don't have a problem with porn, you feel certain things. So there are men who watch pornography and they don't have a problem with it. For them, it's enjoyable. They talk about it. They joke about it. So they are unaware. But for those who do, they will realize things like when I masturbate, even without pornography, I don't feel physically right the next day. I feel weaker. I feel tired. I feel lethargic. And if I've done it too many times that week, I also have some anxiety. I can't look people in the eye. These are very subtle things. But men who have become very self aware of their body and their sexuality, they actually notice this change. It doesn't mean the other men don't notice it. It's just they don't know what it is. They think it's, oh, I'm tired. I didn't get enough sleep last night. I drank too much last night. All these things. They can't tell the difference. It's all one big problem, something else to them, right?
Yeah.
So you have to decide what it is when it comes to masturbation. Now, when it comes to things like edging, and edging to pornography, I tell brothers to be very careful. There's something called porn-induced erectile dysfunction, which is very common these days, which means that men are unable to have an erection and have real-life sex with women unless they have some sort of virtual stimuli. Why? Because they have conditioned themselves to get aroused by viewing pornography only. So while they might see a woman and get aroused, here's the thing. When you're with the woman physically, that woman is not 5 different ethnicities. She's not 5 different body types. She's not 5 different tabs, and she's not going to do 5 different things. As a matter of fact, when you look at her body, it's not airbrushed. She's not perfect. There are odors. She's not making the sound that you can choose. You can't choose anything. There is no setting with her. Well, there's setting. It's just limited settings, right? There's only so much you can do. And that's it. And they find that they're unable to perform. But what has happened is that you have completely rewired your brain to prefer the unrealistic to that which is realistic in front of you. Furthermore, when you are masturbating to pornography, physically, you are using your muscles the wrong way. So in between your legs, there's a muscle that's called the PC muscle. It's your pelvic floor, and it's made up of 2 main muscles, the ischiocavernosus muscle and the bulbocavernosus muscle. And you use it like when you're urinating and you want to urinate faster, you're using the ischiocavernosus muscle. But you're also using both of those muscles work in a different way when you're ejaculating and when you are masturbating. When you spend more time masturbating and edging, which is not a natural behavior to do, then you have what is called a pelvic imbalance, which means one muscle is stronger than the other. So then you're unable to perform with a real woman because a real woman does not feel like your hand with lotion or whatever. So your brain is not working with it and you're not able to last as long. So then men have all these erectile dysfunction problems, and they think, oh, it's a mental thing, an anxiety thing. I need a pill for it. The first question, and a lot of doctors are starting to realize that now, they ask them is, how much pornography do you watch? So first of all, these things are connected. All of them are connected loosely. But the point I want to get across is that there are severe negative effects to your sexual life when you are compulsive with either masturbation or pornography.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, like they could be connected, but it depends on the individual also. Like, yeah,
Of course.
yes. And I think from what I've understood from you, the best thing is just to find a way to let go of masturbating and let go of excessive use of porn. In that case too. Yeah. So I think as a closing remark, I would just like to ask a question. Like, for someone out there who has maybe is having this porn addiction or has masturbated excessively over the last years and is asking, JK, I mean, is it possible for my brain to heal from all of these porn use and masturbation? Even if I say I'm not going to watch porn anymore, I have like a record in my brain of about 1 million porn videos that I could use at beck and call. Is it possible to erase all of these memories, heal my brain totally, and become a new man or a new woman in the process?
Absolutely. It is. Again, I told you I'm a realist. You will never completely erase some images. And when I say never, take it with a grain of salt. So I just turned 40 years old, but I ended my behavior when I was about 25, 26 years old. And I've not engaged in that behavior since. I've also been in a relationship since that time. So I will tell you that at least for that number of years, are there still images that come up randomly? Yeah, they do. And they come up very clearly. They don't have an effect on me, but they're still there. And I have learned over the years to just accept that that's the price I paid for exposing myself to that thing. It's just like, if you're a child and you see a dead body somewhere on the road, like anywhere, just like an accident or something like that, that's something that kind of stays in your psyche because it's very shocking and a strange thing. It's kind of like that with some scenes from pornography. They're just there, and I prefer to just use them as a warning, like as a warning for like, you know what? This is here. That was from a time in your life. Same thing, reframing the past. That was from a time in your life when you were engaging in behavior that wasn't great for you. So just remember, like these are the scars from that. As to the brain rewiring, absolutely. You can rewire your brain for intimacy. You can definitely prefer the company of real people. Just that's the beauty of the brain. The brain is plastic, neuroplasticity. We can change our brain at any age. We can make the decision to um, let go of pornography and masturbation and instead focus on intimacy with somebody that we care about and put all our energy into them. We can also make the decision to let go of pornography and masturbation and instead channel that aggressive energy, especially men, into our entrepreneurial or career aspirations, which is one of the things that I did. I channeled it into my body, into my charisma, into the way I speak. And I remember many years after college, I dropped my Facebook. I changed everything. Old classmates started coming across me online, and they were just like, "Who are you? You never talk." And I was just like, "You're like what happened? Who are you? Don't you look different? Your hands like they couldn't recognize me." But that was because I just took all the energy that was being put towards those unproductive things. I made a decision that I'm going to use all of these urges as fuel for success. And it's worked for me. It can definitely work for you. Don't lose hope. Don't feel bad about it. It's a very challenging thing, I won't lie, to step away from sexual urges. Just realize that you don't have to be perfect when it comes to this. It's okay to slip. When you slip, just make sure you don't slide into a relapse.
I like that. It's okay to sleep, or even sleep, do not slide.
Don't slide.
Don't slide. Yes. Thank you so much, JK. I really appreciate this. It was so wonderful speaking with you about porn addiction. It didn't feel weird. It didn't feel abnormal. It felt so natural. And I appreciate the conversation. It was so enlightening. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much for the opportunity. You asked some really good questions. I enjoyed this.
Thank you.